Okay, welcome back to the Honest Texan. This is part two of the Texas gubernatorial debate between current Texas Governor Greg Abbott and the candidate that wants to unseat him, Francis Beto O'Rourke. Enjoy.
Governor Abbott, the last time you ran for governor, we asked you about red flag laws. And those are laws which could stop an individual with potential intention to harm others from purchasing a gun. And you said about that, quote, "I would not support a red flag law that would take guns away from people without due process." Now, a lot has happened in those 4 years. Are you open to implementing red flag laws today?
I'm just going to say this. Red flag laws are a horrible idea, and they infringe on American rights tremendously. For example, let's say between you and your baby mama, in this instance, that y'all don't get along, and she decides to call the cops and say that you're being a danger to yourself and to others. And she, accuses you of wanting to harm people or whatever, and says you have multiple guns and all that kind of stuff. Well, the police can come in. The police can come, detain you or arrest you or what have you, take all your guns until they deem that you're not a threat, until they deem that you're safe to be released back into society, and you may or may not get your guns back. That's my interpretation of the red flag laws, but don't quote me on that. But I think that's the gist of it. But yeah, terrible idea.
Okay, you have 30 seconds.
Well, let me tell you what I support and I don't support. What I support is making it a felony for someone to lie on a background check. I signed that into law last year. I approve of expanding background checks to include juvenile records. Also approve of making it a crime for criminal gangs to buy or to possess a gun. But I'm still against red flag laws for the reason that it would deny a lawful Texas gun owner their constitutional right to due process.
Thank you, Governor. Mr. O'Rourke, you have been criticized at times for your positions on gun control, including this comment you made in 2019 while running for president.
Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. We're not going to allow it to be used against our fellow Americans anymore.
Yeah, you can't let that down. Especially in Texas. I don't know how you going. I'm amazed that he's even this close. You can't lay that down, Beto. You really can't.
But in February, you told reporters in Tyler that you were, quote, "not interested in taking anything away from anyone."
Man, this dude flip-flops more than anybody. He's just like Kamala Harris. Will do and say whatever it takes to get into office. And you got to be careful with people like that, because people that just want power for the sake of power are very dangerous people. I mean, he's ran for Congress, he's ran for president, and now he's running for governor. Pick a lane and stay in that lane. But apparently voters don't want you, so I don't know. It's mind-boggling.
So which is it, Mr. O'Rourke? Are you for confiscating AR-15 style weapons or not? You have 30 seconds.
After losing 23 of my neighbors to somebody armed with a weapon of war, after talking to these families who could only identify their children in Uvalde by the shoes that they were wearing, it's clear to me that the only place that an AR-15 or an AK-47 makes sense is on a battlefield. But as governor of the state of Texas, I need to be focused on what we can get done. Raising the minimum age of purchase to 21, we can get that done. A red flag law, we'll get that done. Universal background checks, we will get that done. We'll make progress and take action where this governor has failed.
Thank you, Mr. O'Rourke. So just to be clear, yes or no, are you for confiscating AR-15?
You see, you see how he just kind of skated, yeah.
Style weapons.
I'm for making sure that we make progress. Those families that I was just with from the
Doesn't answer the question. He deflects, goes around the question. True politician.
Uvalde want us to take action. This is the common ground. I've listened to Republicans and Democrats alike on this. We can agree on this much. Raise the age to 21.
Okay.
Red flag law and universal
Thank you,
background check.
Mr. O'Rourke. Steve.
Doesn't answer the question. This is what pisses me off about politicians. When you don't answer the question. That was a simple yes or no question. Heck, I guarantee you ask him what his name is, he'll go and start talking about, my father did this and he named me this. And man, we just ask you what your name is. Are you this age? Well, that's an ageist question, Dude, answer the question. Politicians, answer the question.
Steve has the next question.
Thank you, Gromer. We want to focus in now more on the Uvalde shooting. A gunman killed 19 children and 2 adults. Its effects, though, go far beyond Uvalde. Mr. O'Rourke, I want you to speak to parents of victims and really all parents statewide worried about their children's safety.
And I'm glad that whole police department was suspended because what they did was cowardly. You had parents that were lined up trying to get in there. You wouldn't let the parents get in there to get their kids. You had an officer who was on her phone standing outside, said that if those are my kids, I wouldn't be waiting out here. All of these things happen. Yeah, I'm glad they all got fired. I'm glad they all got suspended because they got to be held accountable. And it's sad that those children lost their lives because of some jackass decided to use and go in there. And the police should have did more. The police should have just, after you heard shots in there, you should have immediately went in. Damn everything else. If this is what you signed up for, this is what you signed up for. You know what you signed up for. Just do your job. But I think most people, I don't know, police officers like that, I think they just sign up for it just to collect a check or get a pension at the end, especially those kind of police officers. But I don't know. I'm just talking shit. But yeah, no, that whole Uvalde was a tragedy, and it should have never happened. Could have been avoided had they stuck to their training, had they implemented their training. Everyone, all those police officers, no.
School. What would you do if elected to prevent this from happening again? You have 60 seconds.
Just like you, I'm a parent. With Amy, we're raising Ulysses and Molly and Henry in El Paso. And we are well aware that it's been 18 weeks and this governor has not lifted a finger to make it any less likely that any of our kids will meet that same fate. We need change. And the governor just talked about mental health care. We are dead last in the nation when it comes to mental health care access.
Not true.
And he took $211 million from the mental health care.
Matter of fact, I believe we are ranked 25th when it comes to mental health care. Don't quote me on that, but look it up for yourself. I believe we are ranked 25th.
Budget of the state of Texas. He'll talk about police funding. He failed to fund the police radios in Uvalde, even when that police department asked for them. And you know what? Those radios failed on that day. I want every parent out there to know that the lives of your children are more important to me than the NRA or any special interest or any other political consideration.
What does the NRA have to do with this? I mean, I guess with guns and everything, but no one's mentioned the NRA or I don't know.
Prioritize them ahead of everything else, and we will take action and we will make progress. We'll bring Republicans, Democrats, independents alike together, and we'll get the job done where this governor has failed to do so.
Governor Abbott, to you now. The families of the victims, the Uvalde School District, the Uvalde County Commissioners, the Uvalde City Council all asked for you to call a special session in the wake of the tragedy. You did not, despite calling them on several other issues in the past. Can you explain why you didn't call a special session? You have 60 seconds.
I will, but I must first respond to what we have to respond to every single day. Beto's campaign continues to spew lies and false information. He said two things that are completely false. He said that we're last in mental health care. The fact of the matter is, Texas is now 27th in mental health care because of funding that I
was
provided.
close.
Texas has provided more than $25 billion for mental health care in the last 3 sessions. He also said that we did not fund police radios in Uvalde. Completely false. We provided $1.6 million for Uvalde alone for their police radio systems since I've been governor. So
Came with facts.
Beto continues to provide false information. What I want to make sure that the leaders in Uvalde know is, as we've shown, we don't need to call a special session in order to take action. For 6 consecutive days after the shooting took place, I issued directives to make school safer and to respond to the emergency in Uvalde. And then I remain engaged with the mayor, with the local leaders.
It could have been worse. That's what you told those families. That's what you told that community, and you have done nothing to help them.
Mr. O'Rourke,
Mr. Governor,
we're not done with this topic yet, so you will have your say. But Governor, I want to follow up with you. There's a regular session coming up in January. Will you make school safety an emergency item for lawmakers when they meet? You have 15 seconds.
Absolutely. Just like I did in past sessions. This is going to be an emergency item. Over the summer, I requested special legislative committees to begin working already so that they will have ready when we begin the session to address
If
Uvalde,
it's an
but the
emergency-
broader-based issue across the entire state of
if
Texas,
it's an
as
emergency,
you
call a
mentioned
special
earlier.
session now. Why wait till the next year?
Mr. O'Rourke, a question for you now.
Gun
We're
violence
still-
is a leading cause of death for children and teenagers in this state. Why are you
Sir,
waiting
please,
to save lives?
we need to move on. We've had a lot of topics we want to get to, but we want to stay on Uvalde because there's still some questions that we have here. So I appreciate you staying within your time. Mr. O'Rourke, Uvalde School District Police Chief Pete Arredondo, who led the initial law enforcement response at Robb Elementary, was fired. Is there anyone else who should be held accountable for the mistakes made in that hallway in Robb Elementary that day? You have 30 seconds.
The governor said it himself in an interview to Gromer Jeffers last month. There should be accountability up and down the ballot, beginning with Greg Abbott. I think he has lost the right to serve this state in the most important position of.
Answer the question. This is a this question simple to answer in my opinion. Uvalde police, who's responsible, who needs to be held accountable. This happened in the city of Uvalde, and school superintendent, the police chief, as well as those police officers, as well as those DPS officers that were there, all need to be held accountable. And to this day, they have been, or they are currently being held accountable, because they just suspended the whole entire police force. Excuse me. I mean, the governor has to preside over the entire state. And would you blame the governor for the failures of, let's say, the Dallas Police Department if they botched something as big as this? No, you would blame the city, you would blame the Dallas Police Department, and you would blame that school district, and as well as the individual who did the tragic and horrific events. That's who you would blame. Now, you would blame the governor if his response was terrible. Like he said earlier, it could have been worse. But yeah, but this whole thing, I don't know, like, I just want these politicians to answer the questions. You can't trust a politician when they can't answer a straight question. So I guess you can't trust any. But again, these are the two candidates, current Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Beto O'Rourke. Francis, so yeah.
Of public trust. Furthermore, we know that there were 91 DPS troopers for whom he is responsible who were on the other side of an unlocked door, some for more than 70 minutes. There is a complete failure to hold people responsible accountable. Those families still do not have justice. As governor, I will make it my priority.
Thank you, Mr. O'Rourke. Governor, now to you.
Technically, they got justice because the guy got killed. I mean, it's sad as it is. It's extremely sad because you want that guy to get a different type of justice instead of just getting shot on the spot like that and killed on the spot. you would want that guy to basically, I mean, most people, they don't want to admit this, but you would want that person to suffer, especially for killing children. So, of course, you would want him to stand trial and everything like that. And in the state of Texas, he most definitely would have got the death penalty. So this just made it quicker. I mean, kill him on the spot just made it quicker. You want to end the threat as soon as you can. And these police officers, they did not do that. They failed to really do their jobs. And you see what happens when officers fail to do their jobs. These are the consequences.
Was it? Go ahead.
I'll give you 15 seconds if you want to respond to what he said.
Well, I was going to answer the question. I thought you were going to ask me. But
I've got another question
Okay.
for you. Right after the shooting, you said this.
Black Lives Matter released in 990.
That's a whole nother story I'm going to do.
Collected 80 million.
Can't stand Black Lives Matter.
But the reality is, as horrible as what happened, it could have been worse.
It could have been worse. You heard
Sure.
Mr. O'Rourke bring it up.
Yeah, that's a bad look.
You later said you were misled about what happened inside Robb Elementary. If my memory serves me right, that was the day after. So we were just moments after what had happened. Who misled you, and will they be held accountable? You have 30 seconds.
Everyone in that briefing room that provided me the information about what law enforcement did, what that comment was based upon was information by law enforcement about all the children in all the other classrooms that they evacuated during the time when the shooter was on the campus. What they did not tell me at the time, however, was that there were dozens, if not more, of other law enforcement that were hanging around in the hallway for over an hour without engaging in the Columbine protocol and going in and immediately removing that shooter, which is what they were supposed to do. And because they failed to do that, there does need to be accountability, not just for Pete Arredondo, but also for local law enforcement. DPS officers are under investigation as we speak right now. There needs to be accountability for law enforcement at every level for not following the Columbine protocol.
You will be sure to hold DPS troopers accountable.
Yes,
as governor.
yeah, in a word, yes. But second,
Yeah, that's big. DPS is like, they're big time out here. So that's huge that, that if that is true, that he's going to be holding them accountable, then that's huge.
there are at least 7 who are under investigation as we speak right now, 2 of whom are on suspension as we speak right now. And so I expect DPS officers and law enforcement across the state to follow the Columbine protocol.
Governor, the
Governor.
buck stops on your desk. You blame everyone else. You blame Joe Biden for other issues.
We need to move on.
You
We
blame
need to move
people
on
for misleading
topics,
you.
and actually,
You are misleading this state.
Sally will ask the next question.
I do, and I think you're both going to want to talk about this next topic. It's the topic of abortion. A recent Next Star, Emerson College, and the Hill poll shows more than half of those polled say they are more likely to vote in this election because of the overturning of Roe versus Wade. You both are very outspoken on this issue, but what I want to do tonight is really drill down on specifics. Governor Abbott, you recently sat down with my friend Gromer over here and you talked about what women can do if they are victims of rape or incest. And here's a clip of that interview.
Those victims can access health care immediately as well as to report it. Both of those have very meaningful consequences. By accessing health care immediately, they can get the Plan B pill that can prevent a pregnancy from occurring in the first place.
Some healthcare advocates say emergency contraception like Plan B is often unavailable or it's too costly for women to afford. And trauma could prevent them from taking emergency contraception in the time frame that it's effective. So, Governor, we're going to start with you. With these concerns that I just laid out, is emergency contraception a viable alternative to abortion for victims of rape and incest? And you have 60 seconds, sir.
So to directly answer the topics that you raised, on the availability of it, it's incumbent upon the state of Texas to make sure that it is readily available. For those who are victims of sexual assault or survivors of sexual assault, the state of Texas pays for that, whether it be at a hospital, at a clinic, or for someone who gets a prescription because of it. And so not only should be readily available, but the state of Texas is going to pay for it to make sure that it is available for them.
But Governor, 30 seconds, or I'll give you 30 seconds to answer this one. I still want to know, is Plan B the alternative when it comes to somebody who is pregnant from rape or incest?
Well, it depends on what you mean by alternative. An alternative, obviously, is to do what we can to assist and aid the victim, and that is to help get them medical assistance that they need and the care that they need, but also to know what their options are. They're going to know that the state, through our Alternatives to Abortion program, provides living assistance, baby supplies, all kinds of things that can help them. Also, we've increased funding for prenatal and postpartum care.
Thank you, Governor. Mr. O'Rourke, we're going to stay on the topic of abortion here. Governor Abbott has said that you support abortion on demand. Do you support any limit on when a woman can't have an abortion? In 60 seconds for this question.
This election is about reproductive freedom. If you care about this, you need to turn out and vote. I will fight to make sure that every woman in Texas can make her own decisions about her own body, her own future, and her own health care. And I will work with the legislature and my fellow Texans to return us to the standard that Texas women won in the first place, Roe versus Wade. That's the standard that answers your question. But I've got to respond to this silliness on Plan B, this comment he made about eliminating rape.
I mean, it's sad that women get raped. It really is. Plan B can work. Abortion, I mean, not abortion. Plan B can work. Adoption. You have, I don't know how many different types of contraceptives. I mean, there's a lot out there. There's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of pregnancy centers that will help. So I don't understand abortion. And I attended or at least I covered a pro-abortion rally, to where I already know, especially within the black community, that abortion is extremely high. And for those that don't realize, the black community in the United States have been about 12, 13% of the population for the past 10, 15, 20 years. So we remain stagnant in growth and everything like that. And one of the leading causes is because of abortion. And a lot of times within the black community, it's not rape that does it. Yes, you do have black women that get raped, and that's tragic. But a lot of times it is not that. And a lot of times it's actually due to irresponsibility on both people's sides, on the men's side and on the women's side. So, I mean, there's an interesting interview that Cori Bush did that I implore people to look at. If I can find it, I'll tag it in this video, but I would encourage people to look at that interview. And she's a Democrat. And in the interview, she explains that she was having second thoughts, about having an abortion. And when she went to tell the doctors no, or the nurses no, they performed it anyway. So, and then if we look at the history of Marcus Sanger, who was a devout eugenicist who did not like black people, who wanted to eliminate who wanted to eliminate black people, who wanted to eliminate people that were not up on high standards of society. And that's what Marcus Sanger was. And Marcus Sanger subsequently pretty much started Planned Parenthood. And yeah, maybe Planned Parenthood might have changed, but let me ask you this: if the Ku Klux Klan changed, then would you still be willing to give them a shot? I mean, ask yourself that. So, yeah, when it comes to abortion, in my personal opinion, I'm not going to be neutral on this one. I'm against abortion strictly because, they basically told me that abortion helps protect black and brown people, or helps black and brown people, which I don't understand how that is. I don't understand it at all. But this is just the calm version of that, because I can get a lot more animated, but I'm not going to. But anyways, yeah, I'm gonna just let this video play.
In the state of Texas, this is an attack on women. More women have been raped in the state of Texas than any other state. There are 3,000 untested rape kits at DPS headquarters, meaning that our ability to bring rapists to justice has declined by half on this governor's watch. And it's arguable that rapists enjoy more victims, because more rights under Greg Abbott than their victims do, because they can sue the families of their victims if they help their victim get an abortion, and be able to win a $10,000 bounty in the process.
Thank you. Mr. O'Rourke, I'll give you a chance to respond, Governor. 30 seconds.
So,
I want to say that's very misleading. The law that was, or the laws that were passed, is that I wrote about this, but I can't. I wrote about this, but the state of Texas doesn't enforce the law. What they do is they put the onus of enforcing the law on the public. And according to doctors, I believe it's 6 weeks to detect a fetal heartbeat. So, and again, I'm not a doctor. Go look this up yourselves. Go speak to a doctor. But this is just from my own research that I've done, that you detect a heartbeat at 6 weeks. You know, it's at that point, it's alive. And then you have places like New York or California that allows you to abort a baby up to 9 months. Now, correct me if I'm wrong out there in the comment section. 9 months is typically when a baby's born, or maybe 8 months, or as early as 7 months, I believe. But 9 months is when a fully developed baby is born. And you're telling me that they can abort or kill a baby at 9 months? That seems Hitler-esque to me. But, you know, let me stop.
once again, I'm going to be doing this a lot. I have to point out a misstatement by Beto. I signed a law that eliminated the rape kit test backlog at the Texas Department of Public Safety. As it concerns abortion, listen, Beto's position is the most extreme, because he not only supports abortion of a fully developed child to the very last second before birth, he's even against providing medical care for a baby who survives an abortion. He is for unlimited abortion at taxpayer expense.
That's not
Mr.
true.
O'Rourke, please,
It's
30
completely a
seconds to
lie.
respond.
I never said that, and no one thinks that in the state of Texas. He's saying this because he signed the most extreme abortion ban in America. No exception for rape, no exception for incest. It begins at conception, and it's taking place in a state that is at the epicenter of a maternal mortality crisis, thanks to Greg Abbott.
And I would implore people to go read that bill. It is available. It is public knowledge. It's public. All you got to do is do your research, look it up, read it. Read it.
3 times as deadly for black women. I will fight to make sure that every woman makes her own decisions about her own body, her own future, and her own health care. That's what most of us, Republicans and Democrats in this state, believe.
Mr. O'Rourke, just 15 seconds. Is there a limit that you support on women getting an abortion?
That limit was decided in 1973 through a victory that Jane Roe and Linda Coffey and Sarah Weddington won before an all-male United States Supreme Court. I want us to return to that. It was the law of the land for nearly 50 years until we had the most extreme abortion ban in the country.
Grover has the next question.
Thanks, Sally. Let's move to law enforcement. Mr. O'Rourke, you have been accused by Governor Abbott of supporting efforts to defund police. He may have mentioned it tonight, actually. Here's a chance for you to set the record straight. Do you support measures to defund police? You have 60 seconds.
Of course I don't, and no one does. But let's look at my record. I think that's the best thing to look at, and then we'll look at the governors. On the El Paso City Council, I raised police salaries 12% in the 6 years that I served there. In Congress, I funded $11 billion to local and state law enforcement across this country including in Texas. I want to fund law enforcement, fund training so that everyone is treated equally under the law. And I want there to be accountability for when those officers abuse the public trust. But let's look at what Greg Abbott's done. When police and law enforcement begged him not to sign permitless carry, because it allows anyone to carry a gun in public without a background check, he turned his back on them, did it anyhow. Homicides have gone up 50%, and we now have gun violence as a leading cause of death.
If I'm not mistaken, a lot of the violence that has occurred is in Houston and around Dallas, mainly Houston, if I'm not mistaken. And that's due to the mayor and I believe the chief of police and the sheriff. And the same thing happens here in Dallas. That's also due to the politics here in Dallas. So anytime you are soft on crime, you're gonna have crime. You're gonna have crime go up. That's a fact. Anytime there's never been an instance where a criminal is like, oh, you're not gonna put me in jail for this or arrest me for this. They'll keep doing it. California is a prime example. California went to where you won't be charged with a felony, I believe, if you steal less than $1,000 worth of items. And you have seen these videos have gone viral. So they go into these stores and they steal a bunch of items. Nothing happens. Nothing ever happens to them. And that's due to the policies that these politicians and these these attorneys, city attorneys, and the police tend to put in. And it's stupid. It doesn't work.
For children and teenagers in this state. When the Uvalde Police Department asked for funding, he turned his back on them. He is not doing what keeps us safe. That's why you see the level of rape, violent crime, and homicide up on Greg Abbott's watch.
Just a quick follow-up, Mr. O'Rourke. Can you take 15 seconds to answer this? After the summer of 2020, did you voice support for cities that cut their police budgets? Minneapolis comes to mind. Did you support those efforts?
And that brings up another whole thing, but Minneapolis, they're going through some crazy stuff right now. Their crime is definitely up. Seattle, Portland, all of these places where they defunded the police, so to speak, where they took away a lot of money from the police, crime has gone up. Heck, you go on YouTube, TikTok, whatever, and look up the videos that are coming out of Seattle and Portland alone, and Minneapolis. And you tell me what defund the police has done. I'm not a big proponent of the police because I have my opinions about it. I don't think that you should just blindly support the police, but I don't think you should just blindly support anything. But however, I do understand the buffer that the police is in between the public and the real criminals. So it's almost like a double-edged sword, but I mean, we need the police, but we need to train the police more properly and get better police officers that actually want to do the job, that actually cares about the public, that actually cares about the neighborhood. So that's a whole nother thing, because the community relations and police need to be strengthened, need to become better.
What I supported and what I continue to support is full funding for law enforcement, full funding that includes training to ensure that we're treating everyone equally under the law, and we definitely need accountability and justice. If someone abuses the power of life and death over our fellow citizens, without accountability, we lose the ability to keep our communities safe.
Thank you, Mr. O'Rourke. Governor Abbott, you have spoken about the growing crime in Texas in your commercials and on the campaign trail. You've been governor for more than 7 years, so why is crime up? Don't you bear some of the responsibility for it?
So I'll fully answer that question. Let me first...
You have 60 seconds, by the way.
Let me reply, and that is, once again, Beto misleads by saying that we denied Uvalde Police Department any money. We've answered every call they've ever made to make sure they have whatever funding they need. And Beto clearly said that in response to Minneapolis, that he supports their idea of defunding and dismantling the police. And I got to add this. He didn't say a word to criticize the city of Austin that defunded their police by more than $100 million. The law I passed will prevent any city from defunding the police because in Texas, we support our law enforcement officers, period. The reason why there's been a rise in crime in some areas, Gomer, is because of another issue we're working on. And that's what's happening in Harris County and some other counties where in Harris County, they have these easy bail policies that Beto supports, which is cashless bail, that is letting dangerous criminals, such as people recently convicted of murder last year, back out on the streets now who killed a police officer recently in Houston, Texas.
Governor, take 15 seconds to answer this again. You've been governor for 7 years. Crime is up. Do you bear any responsibility for that?
So let me again explain what happened. In Austin, after they defunded the police, the year after that,
I didn't like that. I mean, I know it's I didn't like that the way he started that answer. Again, this is what political leaders do.
Had the highest number of murders ever. In Harris County, where they have this easy bail policy, in the past couple of years, there have been hundreds of people killed by people let out on bail who had been previously arrested for murder.
Thank you, Governor. Our next topic comes from one of our viewers. Actually, Britt has more on that.
Yes, Grover, thank you so much. Candidates, I have our first viewer question for you. And just so you know, we use this as a jumping off point to then craft our own question for you. So here is Douglas Tyler out of Hayes County with his question. Douglas.
Governor, what steps would you take to ensure that there's not another ERCOT failure like we had during the winter of 2021? How would you increase the generation capacity and reliability? Is it time for Texas to face reality and join the rest of the country in the cooperative grid system?
I mean, yeah. Look, I'd be the first one to tell you, I love the fact that Texas has its own grid. I do. I think it's very important. But I also don't want Texas to be reliable on the federal government. And what pissed me off about the ERCOT situation was that the fact that I believe the CEO or many other ERCOT people didn't even live in the state of Texas. So that's another thing that irked me wholeheartedly. So let's see what he says. I mean, because he did mess up. The state of Texas messed up on this.
Okay, clearly Douglas asked a lot of questions about the grid. Many Texans have similar questions.
A lot of people
died.
died.
Down one by one, and for that, I will send it back over to my colleague, Steve.
Thank you, Britt, and I want to thank Douglas for that question. And Governor Abbott, first for you. Following the outages in February of 2021, the legislature passed 18 different pieces of legislation aimed at improving the grid. An energy expert, Ed Hers from the University of Houston, said last month, quote, "No question the grid's better than it was at this time last year. The governor says it's never been more reliable. But if you're getting up off the floor, any kind of movement is better than what it was," end quote. Governor Abbott, what do you make of that assessment of the state grid? Are you confident in its reliability? You have 60 seconds.
Very confident. In fact, I even guaranteed the power would stay on before we faced that winter afterwards. When Beto was campaigning saying that the grid was going to fail, in the winter and summer, his campaign hopes fell apart because the laws that I signed did secure the grid. Ever since I signed those reform laws, no Texan has lost power because of the Texas power grid. And know this, Steve, and that is this summer we set 11 new all-time records for heat. Time and again, the power grid was able to keep up, and it's because of the reforms we were able to make. And so the power grid remains more resilient, more reliable than ever before. To go ahead and answer Douglas's question, which we appreciate, one reason why it's more reliable is because we have greater power available to us and a greater ability by the Public Utilities Commission to address it. But also, we are going to be adding more non-renewable power, such as natural gas, to make sure that the power stays on.
Thank you.
I will say this, Texas has one of the largest wind farms, and I believe one of the largest solar farms in the U.S. And that shit did not help when the power went out. So relying on those, you shouldn't just rely on those two types of energy sources. I mean, natural gas, that works. I wouldn't mind nuclear energy. I still am a little bit reluctant to use it, but I wouldn't, I see the capabilities of it. But a lot of people died in that storm, in that winter period. And I guess I want to take time, people, whether it's in the summer or whether it's in the winter time, especially in the winter time, before winter gets here, because it is coming, and we don't know how bad winter's going to get, but we knew how bad the Texas heat got this past summer. It got pretty bad. I would say go out, buy emergency supplies, buy, if you can, get a generator if you can. They sell them at Home Depot. I believe they sell them at Lowe's, Harbor Freight. So go out and, if you can, find you a nice generator that'll at least keep your electronics plugged up or powered up. Get you some lanterns, whether it be battery powered or kind of the old school type of kerosene lantern. Those work really well. Get you some wool blankets just in case, and stock up on food. And just like I said, you don't have to do it all at once. Do it gradually. Whenever you get paid, spend a few dollars there. And I know it's easier said than done because of inflation and everything. Your dollar is going a lot less these days, and that's what sucks. We're all feeling that. That's for damn sure. But if you can, just do it little by little, step by step, day by day. Okay, that's. But no, if you can, do that. Get you a little bit here and there, and it all adds up. And by the time winter hits, who knows? You'll be prepared. You'll be ready. You won't be stuck out in the snow or in the ice because you saw how bad it's gotten in the past. So yeah, just do that little by little.
Governor. Mr. O'Rourke, same question. There hasn't been any major issues with the grid, with outages since the winter of 2021. What do you make of the changes that Governor Abbott and the legislature put in to make the grid more reliable? They say more reliable. What would you do differently? You have 60 seconds.
Governor Abbott's grid failure is part of a pattern over these last 8 years. Warned about, for example, school violence and gun violence specifically against children.
He asked, what would you do about the grid? And this is how he does. This is what he says.
Does nothing. Warned about problems within Child Protective Services. Our foster care program does nothing, and it gets worse. Warned before February 2021 that we had problems in the grid. He did nothing. When the blackout started, he ordered the price of electricity pegged at its highest allowable rate. Gas started trading at 200 times what it had sold for the day before. Now we are all paying $45 more on average in our monthly utility bills. It's the Abbott tax that all of us pay. 700 of our fellow Texans lost their lives because of his incompetence and his inability to do what was necessary before February of 2021. And the kicker is the grid is still not fixed. Just ask Toyota. They stopped their third shift in San Antonio because it was drawing too much power. We had 3 conservation notices this summer. We are not ready for this next winter. We need a governor who's going to do the right thing.
Thank you, Mr. O'Rourke. Governor, I'll give you 30 seconds.
Sure. All Beto does is fearmonger on this issue, when in reality, the grid is more resilient and reliable than it's ever been. I do want to respond to the price because, importantly, Texans need to know this, and that is, after Uri, after the reforms that we passed, Texas has one of the lowest electricity prices in the country, far below the national average, and less than half of what the electricity price is in California.
It's one of the fastest growing costs in the state of Texas. And when you look at our higher energy bills, our higher property taxes, $20 billion more under Greg Abbott, you see that he's the largest driver of inflation in the state of Texas right now.
I'll give you 15 seconds, Governor.
Sure. So he just makes this stuff up because,
that's all fact.
Again, the reality is the electricity cost in Texas remains one of the lowest in the entire United States of America and far lower than the national average.
Ask the people who are paying it.
Thank you, gentlemen. Sally has the next question.
Got to talk about education tonight, gentlemen, okay? There's a lot of teachers who are watching and who would like to know the answer to this next question. Texas school districts are hampered by an unprecedented teacher retention crisis. A Texas teacher workforce report reveals there were more than 13,000 new teachers in Texas for the start of the 2010-2011 school year. Okay, look at that number. Flash forward to the 2019-2020 school year. Less than half of those teachers remained.
Man, that's because them badass kids. That's because them bad kids, bad policies, parents not holding their kids accountable, parents not teaching their kids good morals and values, all of that. I mean, I'm just joking around, but no, that is a lot of that is why. The pay, Texas has one of the highest, I believe has one of the highest pays, or highest salaries for teachers in the nation. They're not the highest, but I believe they're one of the highest.
Former teachers cited everything from pay to burnout to safety as problems. Mr. O'Rourke, I want to start with you.
But yeah, again, as inflation rears its ugly head as high as I think 9% now, 8 or 9%, I mean, you're going to have to raise these teachers' pay. Just like everyone else's pay should get raised too to account for it, but you know.
For this next question, how are you going to keep qualified teachers in the classroom when you have 60 seconds?
I mentioned earlier that Amy and I are raising our 3 children in El Paso, where they attend the world-class public schools there. And we know firsthand the important job that those educators do. And I want every educator out there to know that I've got your back. And I'm gonna make sure that we pay you enough not to work a second or a third job.
Just gonna say the body language it's always interesting to me about people's body language. You look at Greg Abbott's body language, right? He seems like he's just listening more attentive and everything like that. But then you look at Beto O'Rourke's body language, and I believe this is what politicians tend to do to try to be. It's kind of like how adults get with their kids when they try to relate to them. They try to use the different languages, different slang, and all that. The body language is saying that about Beto. And I'm pretty sure the body language will be saying that about Greg Abbott when he talks too. But also, you want to pay attention to people's body languages.
Because of Greg Abbott, our teachers are underpaid on average by $7,500 a year. I'm going to ensure that you have more valuable classroom time to connect with those kids. So we're going to stop the STAR test and allow you to focus on drawing forth that lifelong love of learning from every child before you. For our retired teachers, I'll make sure you have a cost of living adjustment every single year going forward. You haven't had one in 18 years, 8 of those on Greg Abbott's watch.
I mean, that sounds good. I mean, the teachers need, look, I'm all for paying teachers. I just don't want to pay jackass teachers.
And most importantly, I will treat you with the dignity and respect that you have earned and that you deserve. You sacrifice and give so much to our kids and to this state. We need to make sure we're holding up our end of the bargain. As governor, I will.
30 seconds to respond to this follow-up. You say that you do support teachers. Do you support giving them a pay raise if you're elected? And if so, how are you going to pay for that?
Absolutely, I want to give them a pay raise. I want to make sure, again, that they're not working that second or third job. What I propose to do, and there's Republican and Democratic support for this, is raise the state's share of school funding. Right now, we ask property taxpayers, the homeowners and renters out there, to shoulder the majority of the burden. I want to make sure that the state is shouldering its fair share. We do that, we can reduce your property taxes at home and provide more funding for our schools, increase teacher pay, and more per pupil funding in every district in Texas.
Thank you, Mr. O'Rourke. Governor Abbott, same question. How are you going to keep qualified teachers in the classroom is the question. Can you answer that for me in 30 seconds?
I will, but I got to say that raise the state share of education funding is exactly what we did both in 2019 and 2021. In fact, I provided more funding for education than any governor in Texas history. I provided more funding for teacher pay raises than any governor in Texas history. As we gather here tonight, Sally, the per pupil funding in the state of Texas is at the highest there's ever been. So we will work with the teachers to make sure. I created a new program.
My friend used to pay $163 for car insurance. Now look how much he pays.
I can tell you about.
I'm going to give you 30 more seconds. This is your 60-second answer. Go ahead.
I created a new program that provides a 6-figure salary for teachers, more than $100,000. It was used very effectively and broadly in the Dallas County or Dallas Independent School District area, and it's catching on around the state.
I remember that.
Teachers will dedicate themselves to be these master teachers. They will be able to earn a six-figure salary.
Educators watching tonight, 15 seconds or less, are you going to give them a pay raise if you are reelected?
Yes, just as we have given them a pay raise in the past, we will continue those pay raises going forward.
He's been governor for 8 years. They're still underpaid $7,500
Okay.
against their national counterparts.
I'm
Per
gonna give
pupil
you,
funding
let me give
is
you 15
$4,000
seconds.
down.
Go ahead. I'll give you 15.
I'm just gonna say this: regardless of where you are in the state or in the nation, America's public school systems are garbage. They're absolutely terrible. School choice is what parents need. School choice is what parents should get. And that's what needs to happen going forward. And I hope that does happen going forward. I hope that these parents will be able to send their kids to schools that will actually teach them. Because, like I said, public school system is garbage. It's trash.
15 seconds, but we can't talk over each other. Go ahead.
Per pupil funding in this state is $4,000 less than our counterparts across the country. Educational attainment is at an all-time low pre-pandemic. In the average fourth grade classroom in Texas, most of those fourth graders could not read.
Okay.
Hold on. Didn't he say earlier that teachers were paid $7,400 less? And then he just said they're paid $4,000 less. I'm not sure. I'll have to go back and rewatch it, but I think that's what he said. And if that's the case, you got some explaining to do on that one, Beto, because those numbers, you have said two different numbers.
Time is up, Mr.
We need to
O'Rourke.
get the backs of those teachers.
Time is up. We're going to go to Gromer for the next question.
Thank you, Sally. The next two questions are personal questions directed to each of you only. There will be no opportunities for rebuttals. So let's start with you, Governor Abbott. University of Houston political scientist Brandon Rottinghouse said the following, quote, "In Texas politics, it's adapt or die. Greg Abbott didn't start his career as a right-wing Republican, but he certainly ended up there." Governor Abbott, you signed a law banning nearly all abortions without exceptions for rape or incest, and a law allowing the permitless carry of firearms. Critics, including some members of your own party, say you have moved too far to the right. Have you moved too far to the right, Governor? You have 60 seconds.
Well, let's look at the issues that you brought up, and that is, for one, as a Catholic, and my wife and I, we've been pro-life our entire lives. So much so that it grew even stronger when we adopted our daughter. On the day she was born, I was the very first person to hold her after she was born. And I've seen firsthand the power that adoption can have. And it just further strengthened my belief in the power of giving life to every child possible, seeing how it can happen so successfully. I want others to be able to have that same sense of joy, not only that my wife and I have had, but also that our daughter has had. In general, one thing that we've been able to achieve across the entire state of Texas, we've ensured that we provide opportunity for everybody. Grover, as we gather here tonight, Texas ranks #1 in jobs created by black business owners and jobs created by Hispanic women business owners.
Governor Abbott, just 10 more seconds. Have you moved too far to the right, though, in recent years?
And what I tried to explain to you, Gromer, is that I'm governing from principles. I'm not looking at changing and constantly flip-flopping positions like other people do. I'm governing.
That was a shot at Beto.
Thank you, Governor Abbott. Mr. O'Rourke, you served as a congressman from West Texas from 2013 to 2018. Since then, you had a close but unsuccessful run for Senate against Ted Cruz in 2018. 2 years later, in 2020, you had an unsuccessful run for president. Now you're running for governor. Why have you run for so many different offices? Is it about ambition?
He has a lot of ambition.
60 seconds.
You know, I feel so lucky that through so much of my life I've had the opportunity to serve others. As a small business owner in El Paso, Texas, creating high skill, high wage, high value jobs in our community. As a member of the City Council, as a member of Congress on the House Veterans Affairs Committee, delivering for those who put their lives on the line for this country, for all of us. It has been the honor of my lifetime. And now to run to be able to overcome these failures that we see in Texas right now, whether it's a grid that doesn't work, teachers who are leaving the profession by the thousands, leading the nation, a number of schools.
You see the question on the screen. It says, why have you run for so many political offices? And this is his answer.
Being able to deliver for people who are counting on us at this moment of truth to make sure that we come through. And it's not just me, and it's not just my political party. There are hundreds of thousands of people across the state of Texas who want change and are working for it. And it's my honor to be able to lead this campaign and to serve as the next governor of this state to make sure that we deliver for them.
Thank you, Mr. O'Rourke. Let's go back to Britt now for another topic inspired by a viewer question.
Yes, another viewer question for you tonight, candidates. And we did use this to then craft our own question as a heads up. So first, that initial question from a Nexstar News Nation viewer. It's from Missy Pena out of New Braunfels. Here's Missy.
What are your plans to help get mortgage rates under control and make sure that housing stays affordable for everyone to avoid the issues we had in 08, 09, where everyone was losing their homes to foreclosure?
Hell, get rid of all these damn Californians and New Yorkers out of here.
Now we have our own question that includes things on property taxes, and for that, I will send it over to Steve.
Thank you, Britt. Thank you, Missy, for that great question. You know, property taxes make up a hefty amount of most people's mortgages in the state of Texas.
Son of a...
This game, you're not ready.
Mr. O'Rourke, I want to ask you this question first. The governor's proposed using half of the $27 billion budget surplus to provide what he says is the largest property tax cut in state history. That does not relieve the long-term property tax burden that many Texas residents feel. How would you provide long-term property tax relief? You have 60 seconds.
You know, about the governor's proposal, you have to ask yourself where this guy's been for the last 8 years. People across this state are hurting. The average Texan now is paying more in taxes than the average Californian. When you combine that with his failure in the grid that has sent our energy bills through the roof and the cost of housing, he's the single greatest driver of inflation in the state of Texas. This is how we can turn it around. One, let's expand Medicaid. We'll go from a state that's the least insured to one where everyone can see a doctor or be able to fill a prescription. It will also reduce our property taxes because right now you are on the hook for uncompensated indigent care. Two, let's up the share of state spending for public ed. I talked about it earlier. The state spends 40%, local property taxpayers 60%. Under my leadership, we'll get that to 50-50, reduce the pressure on local property taxpayers. And third, let's make sure that there's property tax fairness. Corporations in this state are not paying their fair share. That means all of us pay more.
Thank you, sir. Governor Abbott, I want to ask you the same question. How do you provide long-term property tax relief? You also have 60 seconds.
Sure, so property tax relief is central to this election and to Texans at home, just like Missy. And know this, there's only one person on this stage tonight who's ever raised property taxes, and that is Beto. Beto raised property taxes 3 times when he was on the city council in El Paso. I will never raise property taxes. And one thing he knows also, and that is the state of Texas does not levy a property tax. That's only done at the local level. And so what the state of Texas has done, and we will continue to do, is to drive down the ability of the local governments from being able to raise taxes. And I'm the only one with a bold vision for actually cutting property taxes, as you pointed out. Because of our strong economy in Texas, we have a budget surplus of $27 billion. I want to use at least half of that $27 billion to drive down property tax rates. Steve, it can be done in a long-term basis if we use that to lower the school property tax component.
Thank you, sir.
He raised my name in that.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you 15 seconds.
Thank you. Like many local leaders, we have to deal with unfunded mandates sent down by Greg Abbott. That's our mental health care system, where the county jails are the largest provider of mental health care services, our schools. As governor, I'll make sure that we expand Medicaid so we reduce that demand and up the share of state spending. That's how we get this done.
I want to move on to...
I mean, he didn't even respond to the allegation of what Abbott was saying, that he raised property taxes. So that leads me to believe, or that suggests that that is exactly what he did, is raise property taxes in El Paso. So, I mean, I mean, go back and look for yourselves and listen for yourselves and see if he explains that answer. But I don't think he explained jack.
Because this is an important topic, and we've got a lot of things we want to try to get to in this short hour. Mr. O'Rourke, you say you would take the burden off property tax owners by creating other revenue streams, most notably legalizing marijuana, expanding Medicaid, and closing loopholes enjoyed by commercial property owners. But how will you get those proposals through a Republican-controlled legislature? 30 seconds.
Republicans and Democrats alike across this state want to make sure that we reduce property taxes. I think we all have a vested interest in that outcome. They also agree on common sense bipartisan solutions. Expanding Medicaid, all that means is getting $10 billion back of our federal income taxes to this state to reduce our property taxes. Why Greg Abbott has not done it when every border state has is beyond me. Making sure that we legalize marijuana so we no longer spend $500 million locking people up and forgo another $500 million in revenue, again, makes no sense.
Thank you,
Let's
sir.
legalize marijuana and get this
we
done.
need to move on because I want to make sure that we give the governor a chance to answer my next question. Your campaign team has said since taking office, property taxes have been reduced by $18 billion. Yet those reductions have not kept pace with rising property values that increase the taxes homeowners pay. How do you solve this problem without introducing additional revenue streams? You have 30 seconds.
Sure. So one way that we have reduced property taxes is through those homestead exemptions. Another way that we've done it is by buying down the property tax rate at the school district level. And what I propose to do with this $13.5 billion, if not more, is to drive down those property tax rates even further. My goal is to eliminate the school property tax that's imposed in the state of Texas so that people can genuinely own their own home without being taxed out of it.
Mr. O'Rourke, I want to give you 15 seconds.
He's had 8 years to get this done. If it's such a good idea, why are we talking about another 4 years to accomplish that? I will reduce your property taxes as governor. This guy has...
It seems to me that he just thinks that everything happens in an instant when everything takes time. Even as president, even when you have a Republican president who has the Senate and the House, right? They don't get everything done. Everything takes time. 4 years, 8 years is usually not enough, especially when you're in, at least as a president, it's not enough. And then when you have opposition, then that's really not going to be enough. But again, it's like it's unrealistic in my opinion that he's thinking that everything happens in an instant. At least that's what I gather from it. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just a dumbass or something. I don't know.
Has raised them by $20 billion, 40% increase since he first took office. You want more property taxes? Vote for Greg Abbott.
Governor, I'm going to give you 15 seconds.
So anybody who knows anything knows the state does not raise property taxes. The only reason why it would have gone up is because of valuations. That would mean that I get credit for the biggest enrichment people have had. I will not take that. One thing we have to do to add on top of it, we need to reduce the appraisals. We've got to completely change the appraisal system.
Thank you, sir. We're running out of time. Let's actually throw it over.
I agree with that. I'm not a homeowner, but I've looked into buying a home, and then I've talked to different homeowners. Yeah, the appraisal, the way the appraisal's done is absolutely atrocious. It's insane.
Over to Britt now.
Thank you, and thank you, gentlemen. You made it. That's all the time we have for questions tonight, and now it's time for your closing statement. So, Mr. O'Rourke, we'll start with you tonight. 30 seconds for your closing statement. Your time starts now.
Thank you. Look, I don't think that Greg Abbott wakes up wanting to see children shot in their schools or for the grid to fail, but it's clear that he's incapable or unwilling to make the changes necessary to prioritize the lives of our fellow Texans. That's why it's on all of us to make sure that we have change at the ballot box this November 8th. I'll keep your lights on. I'll make sure that I keep your kids safe. We'll reduce property taxes, and we'll prioritize the lives of each and every single Texan in this state.
Mr. O'Rourke, thank you so much. Now, Governor Abbott, your 30 seconds starts now.
Texas ranks #1 for the most new jobs added since you reelected me. We're #1 for blue ribbon schools, #1 for tier 1 research universities, and #1 in so many categories. I'm running for re-election to keep Texas #1, to cut your property taxes, to secure the border, to keep dangerous criminals behind bars, and to keep deadly fentanyl off our streets. Together, we will keep Texas number one.